most people's sales goes like this. And what we want is for it to go like this.
Any sort of guidance that you would give for businesses that want to reach that first 10K, that 100K, yes, to burst through that?
So never be afraid to look at information from anyone. Even the social media influencers, don't be afraid to look at that information.
Definitely a brilliant strategy. Thank you for that.
And as a business, you have to always believe you can bring in more business. The other thing I'm going to be focusing on, I think, is just trying to get the message out there more and more to people, saying there are ways to get clients without paying for adverts. Please save your money because you can bring in clients without spending that money.
Welcome everyone to another CEO Roundtable here with WCLI. So Wisdom Counselors Learning Institute's mission is to close the wealth gap for BIPOC entrepreneurs in pursuit of generational wealth by increasing ethical, equitable, and financially sustainable underserved startup enterprises. My name is Jessie Santana, and I'm an organizational culture strategist developing inclusive and culture-driven leaders to build legacy and create impact. And I'm here joined today by Gary Brown, and we're going to be talking about something that is essential to any business, what makes a business, right? And that is sales. So Gary, please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much, Jessie. Hi everyone, my name is Gary Brown. I'm originally from England. 15 years ago I moved to Israel, and I currently hop between the two countries. And my mission and my raison d'etre is to help business owners get clients on a consistent and repeatable basis without spending any money on paid marketing. If you're selling B2B, business to business, I believe there is no need to spend money on paid adverts. That's not the same, and we'll talk about this later, as hiring someone to do organic social media. That's paying someone to do a job. But I do not believe if you're selling B2B, you need to pay for Facebook campaigns, SEO, etc. There's so many other things you can do. If you're selling B2C to the consumer, that's different. But that is my mission. I want to help business owners to get clients in a repeatable way that they're comfortable with. There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And so let's get in. And I think that one of the things that you mentioned, right, in that brief introduction was sustainable. And so let's talk about that, because I'm a business owner. I've seen lots of, shiny object syndrome where we're jumping from things to things. But what makes sales sustainable in your opinion, especially with B2B?
So the first thing I would say, and I'm glad this is on a Zoom so people can see the video, which is, unfortunately, most people's sales goes like this. And what we want is for it to go like this. So there are two completely separate factors as to why that is. The first one, which is funny when you think about it, but it's not funny because it's very serious, is when people have clients, they stop doing work to bring in new ones. Why would you do that? Why would you start from the beginning every time? So one of the things that I teach is if you do an hour a day of sales work, every day, some strategies will take 6 months to pay off. Some will take 3, some will take a week. But if every day you block an hour a day to do sales work, and the rest of the day you focus on servicing your clients, you will get that consistency because you're maintaining a sales effort. And if you can't do it, you should hire someone who can. That is the first thing that I would say. I meet too many business owners, and it's totally understandable, by the way. They're so busy trying to juggle everything. But if once you get clients, you ease off on the work that got you the clients, then you've lost all momentum. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
So that's number one. Maintain every day, and if an hour's too much, start with half an hour. But it's not enough to do 2.5 or 5 hours once a week. It's got to be the small, consistent, daily work. So that's number one. The other reason I believe people have this issue is, I'm going to now make a very bold claim. I'm going to summarize every sales book and every sales video you're ever going to read or see in 60 seconds. Sales is about identifying a problem, offering a solution for a cost, for a fee that is reasonable, and therefore having identified a market, a group of people, a group of businesses that you are helping with a problem. And because we are, a capitalist society, we charge money for that help, whether you're providing a service or a product. That's every book you'll ever read. Now, where the disagreement is and why there are so many books and so many videos is, how do you do that? And that's fine. There's legitimate opinions across the board. But the essential definition of what sales is, I hear people proudly go on a networking event and start off their pitch by going, I don't sell. Well, if you don't sell, you have no clients. Sales is not some dodgy, it's a very British word there, dodgy, but it's not a trick. It's not tricking people. And the reason this is linked to the question you asked is because one of the things people need to understand to have consistent sales is you have to understand the market that you are targeting, or markets, and how to get in front of that audience. And a lot of people I know believe sales begins from the moment that you pick up the phone or you send an email. That's not true. Sales begins from the data you're compiling, because if the data or the market you're targeting is wrong, you're going to fail. And so people need to understand that sales begins with this definition I've given, by first saying to yourself, I've got the problem, I've got my solution, who is this aimed at, and where are they? And so one of the problems is, if you're just getting referrals, which are random, A, you're not in control of the referral process. And B, there may not be a consistency to the referrals. They just happen to be friends of yours who know people that need your help. Whereas if you can look at your top 10 customers and say, oh, there are patterns here, and there'll always be an exception to the rule. I'm not saying there won't, but 99%, I will happily say to anyone, if you show me your top 10 clients, we can see a profile of the kind of businesses or people that you are targeting. Once you have that, you can get consistency because you're attacking the same area. Whereas I know people, the worst thing you can ever say, whenever I hear someone say these words, I do teenage eye roll. We work with everyone. I always say, if you had a back problem, would you go to the general doctor or the back specialist? I know where I'm going. Mm-hmm. Being niche, or since we're talking North American niche, is not a bad thing. In fact, it allows you to be the best in your field, but it also allows you to have a much clearer focus on who you're targeting. So for example, I used to offer a service where people could hire me to do sales for them. Because of the amount of money I wanted to charge for that, I knew that I could only work with businesses where that one client for them was worth 4 figures minimum. That ruled out a lot of companies. I can't help a scrunchy company. That already ruled out a lot of things. I also wanted, really ideally, to work with people where one client's going to do repeat business, because then that one client's going to give them an amazing return. So that ruled out another load of businesses. And so I only focused on 7 or 8 types of businesses, and I did that for a number of years. And it's the same thing now. When I say I believe I can help people get clients consistently without spending money on paid advertising, I say for B2B. That means I'm losing out on any B2C business as a client. Now, if someone is B2C and wants help, I've got a marketing company I refer to them. But the reason I refer to this marketing company is they offer a service for $1,500 a month where they'll do all the social media for you, not paid advertising, and they will organically do it for you. And after 3 to 6 months, the results are amazing. My point is I'm not afraid to rule out the market for myself because I know the market I'm best at. And that is the advice I would give to people listening is you want consistency in sales, you need to know the market or markets that you're in and ignore all the other markets as shiny as they are. Hammer the markets you know are definitely a fit for you.
Absolutely. And I do think that that's an important thing to clarify for yourself, right? As you're on this entrepreneurial journey is who do you actually serve? Because yes, hypothetically, it could be that you serve many people and many types of businesses, but do you want to be serving many types of businesses? Because you may have to change, even if it's the same service, tailor it differently. And that's going to cost, power and energy and all of these other things that you may not want to be doing. So like you said, if you create your niche, if you stay within that niche, you can become excellent at that service. And then we can figure out other things for you to do, but be excellent at that first, right?
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think that, oftentimes in this, in this space around entrepreneurship, there's also lots of different kinds of advice out there where it's not necessarily sound or coming from, actual people that have done the work, but, it's, the social media influencers that are selling courses but haven't done the traction. Is there anything that people can, how do they know that they're doing it correctly as opposed to just, sitting with the fluffy noise that keeps them occupied?
No, I agree. It's like, I'm very blessed to have 4 children and, the best parenting advice seems to come from people that don't have children. You're like, well, no. A friend of mine once made a joke that one of his friends said, last night I slept like a baby. And they were like, oh, so you woke up 4 times and wet yourself? Like, that's only said by someone that doesn't have kids. So it's the same thing with running a business. It's very nice to talk theoretically about, oh, do this. But unless you've actually been involved in a business and run a business, I've worked for businesses, I've run businesses, and I currently run 2 and I'm launching a 3rd business in January. And you learn from your mistakes. And so then when I say to somebody, I advise this, I don't advise this, I may still be wrong. I may get it wrong. I'm a human being. But at least I've got, the phrase I'd use from England is, I've earned my stripes. I've earned my stripes. And so I would say, never be afraid to look at information from anyone. Even the social media influencers, don't be afraid to look at that information. But I always say you've got to evaluate information in context. And I think one of the biggest problems we have, because we're in the information age, but I think the problem is people have forgotten to contextualize the data. So an example I'll give you is if a company came to me and said, we've got 2 salespeople. They both did the same figures last year. But one of them hit their target after 6 months and then he stopped. The other one was consistently producing. We have to let someone go. My personal opinion would be you have to let the person who achieved their target early go, because that says to me that they're not striving to achieve the most they can. They want to do the minimum and then coast. And as an employee, that's not what you want in an employee. The other person might need more help and training to get their numbers up, but they are consistently performing, so there's something to work with. And in an ideal world, you keep them both on, because there is something to having them who can do an amazing job. You just got to find ways to motivate and work. But contextualizing that data is very important. And so if two people have done the same numbers, but one did it over 12 months, one did it in 6 months, and there'll be people that disagree and they'll say to me, no, Gary, you keep the 6-month person because they've got much more potential. And you go, that's fine, but don't think that they're the same, even though their numbers are the same. You've got to contextualize this information. And I feel that's what's missing with a lot of people, that they get lost in all this info and they don't contextualize it. Who's saying it? What have they done? And there are people that have got way more business experience than me, but haven't worked in the industries I'm in. I'll take their advice with a pinch of salt. I'll still listen, but I'll say, yeah, but like I have a number of friends who work in real estate. Now, it's great to get their advice, but there are some things that in real estate that just are not applicable in the business world when you're doing B2B. So you've got to contextualize all this stuff, I think.
Yeah, and I do agree with you. And there's one thing when it's from theory, right? All the sales books are very similar in the theory, but it's in the practice and that consistency and being able to, implement it and not sit in the overwhelm. Because I think that's something that also happens a lot when there's so much information out there that you're just in information overload and you just keep looking for more information as opposed to doing it, testing it, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't, and then continuing to move forward. So thank you for that. And going to the motivation, I guess. So as a business owner, what keeps you motivated? I know that there's lots of talks about, economic difficulties coming up worldwide. What keeps you motivated in doing the work that you do?
The two things that keep me motivated are, number one, having been employed and having run businesses. One of the things that keeps me motivated is I like having the ability to choose who I work with. When you're employed, you don't always have that choice. That's a huge thing. You don't always have the choice when you're employed about who you work with. Whereas I can turn around to someone and say, I didn't enjoy the interactions we've had. Wouldn't necessarily phrase it like that. I didn't enjoy the interactions we've had. I'm not going to pursue this with you. And I've turned down clients because I didn't think, and I urge anyone who hasn't done this yet, the first time you say no to a client, even if you need the money, if you want it, but you say no to a client because they're going to be a nightmare, you will feel very empowered. So that's number one. The second thing that keeps me motivated is, especially in terms of the sales coaching, I really do have a passion. I have friends in marketing and we joke about it, and there'll be marketers listening to this who will be very offended. We don't have a relationship. I apologize. But with my friends who are marketers, we joke about it. Oh, sales people will comment. And I'm like, oh, marketing's just, shouting through a megaphone. We have a joke about it. But the reality is, I believe, if you're a business that has lots of money and you can afford sales and marketing, that's ideal. But if you can only afford sales or marketing, or if time-wise, even if you can't afford either of them, I know people that can't afford it and still spend $5,000 on Facebook and SEO. What drives me is to say to those people, please put your money away. There's a better way. And it will not cost you $5,000 a month. You don't need to do this. There are ways you can build your business and not take on the extra financial debt, so that when you do have that extra business, then you want to put that into marketing. That's great. But I feel very passionately about this because I know that 80% of businesses fail in the first 5 years. One of the major reasons for that is because they don't have the financing. If you've wasted X amount on marketing when you could have done the same thing, it would have taken longer. Sales is slower, but it's organic and you're able to do it without spending that money. You're giving your business an extra X $1,000 boost by not dipping into that money. Sorry. So that's what also keeps me motivated, those two things.
Yes, and especially with our audience being BIPOC entrepreneurs, there's even a greater disparity when it comes to breaking even 100K as far as revenue. And so Is there anything, any sort of guidance that you would give for businesses that want to reach that first 10K, that 100K,
Yes.
to burst through that?
So, as much as there are many differences, I would say that the Black community and the Jewish community have a lot of things that we share in different ways. And I would say that the support and the caring within the community to look after one's own is a trait that both communities share. What I would say is, people sometimes forget that it's great to get that support initially and stay within your own community. But you actually need to go beyond it if you want to really make the big money. And so one of the things people talk about in networking, and it's very interesting when I see this, because there's what people say and there's what people do. Everyone's heard the phrase, well, most people, I should say, you have to network beyond the room. Have you heard that phrase?
I've heard variations of it, yeah.
Similar variations. Now, if you're somebody, what does that mean? Either they can't tell you, or they'll say it means that you're not just talking to the people in the room. You're talking to everyone they know. So if you know this, and you're in a room with 21 people, so 20 other people, and they all know 200 people, you are now talking to potentially 4,000 people. So when you do your pitch, instead of gabbling something to try and get as much information out and bore everyone to death, and literally sell to everyone in front of you, take a moment and say, listen, I don't want to work with anyone in this room, but I want everyone to think of 2 people who fit the following criteria. And that's who I want to be introduced to. Now, you can do your own variation, you don't have to do that. But why do I raise this point? Because in terms of breaking 10K, 50K, 100K, use your community for the first K. Try and sell to people you know. But you've got to then get to the next level and say, who in my community do I know that actually works outside the community? And that way you're using your communal contacts to break out of the community. And then when you're successful, obviously you want to put some of that money back into your community and hire people within your community to help you with various things. And that's how you can bring outside money and keep it within the community. So I would say everyone here, I would say to everyone here, make a list of 5 people you know who you feel would know people outside of your community who need what you offer. And that's a starting point. And once you've got your first 1 or 2 sales like that, they will be introduced you to even more people.
That is definitely a brilliant strategy. Thank you for that. I think that sometimes we rely on what's comfortable, we rely on what we know, as opposed to stretching ourselves and thinking, how, because people know other people. It's not just the one person. I work with a lot of recruiters and people, and everybody knows everybody. It's just a few degrees of separation, especially in this digital world. And, making sure that you are consistently talking and sharing that, who's your ideal client, who do you want to work with, even if it's not, this may not be for you, but do you know someone like this? Do you know someone who might need this? That's absolutely essential. And thank you for that reminder. Sometimes I forget myself.
Well, it's very easy to get comfortable. And the truth is, a lot of us, I think, that come from smaller communities, we do partially, I think part of our brain says, and I want to, be successful and really help the community that I'm part of, whether it's the Black community, Jewish community, Asian community, other communities. But the reality is, whilst that's good, you just have to remind yourself, but the best way to do it is to get money from outside the community. So how do I do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So how do you sort of see the rest? I know that it's June, the rest of 23 still seems somewhat shaky economically for most people. So how are you going to tackle the rest of the year? What are some of the things that you're looking forward to, that you're hoping to include people in for the rest of this year?
Well, I might give a very different answer to you're used to with this kind of question. I'll tell you why. And I'm very aware of my own bias in saying this, but when there is a problem with business, the last thing you should do is get rid of sales. Marketing under sales, but sales or marketing. Because if you don't have ways to bring in fresh money, then you really are in trouble. And it amazes me how many times the first thing people think of doing, I'm going to stop all sales efforts. Well, now you're just locking yourself into your current situation. So the first thing I would say is make realistic, achievable targets of, I'm going to try and get 1, 2, 3, or 4 clients within the next 1, 2, 3 months. Short term, achievable, measurable, smart goals, right? That's number one. You would be amazed how many people just have a general concept of, I'm going to try and do this. And how different it is when you say, right, today is the 22nd of June, August, people are on vacation. I've got 5 weeks. I believe in 5 weeks I can land 3 clients. I'm going to spend my hour a day targeting 10 companies so that 1 in 3 close. That's just an example. So my first response is, I think you need to sharpen, and I do this, I'm sharpening my targets to make them more narrow, because then there's a lot more concentration going on this rather than this. So that's the first thing. So if you have the kind of companies you like to work with, Jesse, so I'm sure there's a vague general thing of, this and this, but I could say to you, right, pick two categories to focus on for the next 5 weeks and go and get 1 client in each category, or pick 1 category and get 2 clients. That's very different from I don't know what to do. So that's my first thing. Make a narrow, very achievable, specific target to get more money in from a new source. The second thing I'd say is that although we are affected by global economic things, I do think it's a lot less than people think. I'm not Bill Gates. You're not Elon Musk. I believe there's enough business for people like us to get another few clients for our business that will be financially okay. And I think that's something that business owners need to tell themselves. Yes, I know generally, globally, this is what's going on. But right now, right here, I could focus on getting 5 clients in the next 3 months. That means I'm not financially really affected by what's going on. So I think sometimes the global news is taken too personally. And as a business, you have to always believe you can bring in more business. The other thing I'm going to be focusing on, I think, is just trying to get the message out there more and more to people, saying there are ways to get clients without paying for adverts. Please learn them from me or elsewhere. Save your money, because you can bring in clients without spending that much.
Well, I thank you for the reminder, Gary. It's definitely making sure that we're focused on our businesses and not the noise going on, and continuing to not only support our business, create sustainable businesses, support our communities, but also making sure that we're supporting each other. So thank you so much, Gary. This has been such a good conversation. I hope that everyone is able to learn, create consistency, right? Consistency is what matters. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share here with our audience today?
Yeah, I'd like to say one last thing that a teacher of mine once taught me when I was on my gap year studying, which was, in order for a jug of water to fill up the cups, you have to sometimes refill the jug. And so it's very nice to talk about supporting communities and all these things. And I'm not saying not to do that, and trust me, I do my bit, I'm sure you do your bit. But sometimes you actually have to be selfish for 3, 6, 9, 12 months from a business perspective, so that you're then in the position to do all the amazing good that you want to do. And sometimes the best thing for your long-term altruism is some short-term selfishness. And I think if you can remember that, I think it will sharpen, and I mean the royal you, all of us, if we can remember that, I think it helps us to stay focused on achieving those financial goals that then allow us to do all the amazing things we want to do. And for the sake of a lifetime, you know, I'm 40, you're 21. But we're going to be around hopefully for a long time. I think taking 3 to 6 months just to focus on our business so that we can help the world. Again, put it in context. It's worth that selfishness to then be able to be such a giver at the end.
Yeah. And, you know, you can do small things that don't take away from all of the things, right? So you're not, not fulfilling and creating your sustainable business. And that's the thing that we want to do. And that's what we hope to create.
Yeah, I've come on here today. I'm very, honored that you invited me and really excited. And I've enjoyed talking with Jesse. And the reality is I've taken, 45 minutes now of my time to try and give help to people outside of my community. And if I help one person refocus and, ditch their ad spend and, save that money and go, right, I'm going to learn. And people feel free to message me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's the best way to reach me. I'm happy to give little pieces of advice for free, no problem. And if someone says, right, this is what I do, what's the one thing you would do? That would be worthwhile, because they will then go and improve their situation and then they'll do it for someone else. So like you said, you can do things without rocking the boat, even while you're building. Yeah.
And again, we're here to create sustainable, equitable, and generational wealth and businesses so that we can create that impact that we're hoping to see in our communities and with each other. Again, thank you so much, Gary, for all of these reminders and this conversation and making sure that we're sticking to our sales goals and plans, and not spending it on other things that we shouldn't. I greatly appreciate you, and I'm sure that our community will not only appreciate what you've shared here with us today, but also be reaching out. So thank you.
I look forward to that. That'll be great.
Thank you so much.